Hey everyone, this is Car Ray Rob, where I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob, and we want to welcome you to our podcast. Say hello to my little film.
Hey there, it'll be just a little while till Ray and Rob spit their spittle. Come on, check out of the hospital. So grab some of your best peanut brittle. This will be a darn good transmittal. And say hello to my little film.
Welcome everyone to the last episode of 2025 of Say Hello to My Little Film. Ray, why don't you tell everybody what it is we do here?
Well, for the last time this year, Rob, what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce to you a movie that I love, but that you have somehow never seen before, and we're going to see if you love it maybe as much as I do after you get a little glimpse of it.
That's right, we call that our fresh perspective on a retrospective review, and as Ray said, it is his episode.
Yeah, Rob, and this is the holiday season.
It is.
I did not pick a holiday movie, but I feel like this movie I'm bringing you a gift.
I bring the fire, and you always quelch it, right?
I'm sorry, I cannot always meet the standards that you set for us. But I think in some ways you potentially are gonna like this movie. In some ways, I think you're gonna find this movie a little triggering.
Oh boy.
Yes.
Is this another political movie?
No.
You do
worse.
Spring some good. Oh God. What's worse than that?
Family drama. I don't know.
Family drama. Oh man.
No. Yeah. So yeah, heart-lifting movie. So there's some aspects that fit the season,
Okay.
but it doesn't take place in December or anything like that.
Well, it's not political, so I got that going for me. Little family drama. We've had some good experiences with that. But before we go any farther, for the last time in 2025, Ray, I gotta know, what do you got?
What do you got? What do you got?
Well, what I got, Rob, like I mentioned, I did bring a gift for you with this movie because this movie's called Gifted.
Oh.
We're going back to 2017.
Okay.
Chris Evans.
Captain America?
Captain America. It's got McKenna Grace.
Oh, I
who we
do
love
McKenna Grace.
Playing a genius niece of Chris Evans.
Okay.
Chris Evans plays her uncle,
Okay.
and he has custody of her.
This movie does sound vaguely familiar.
Yeah, you'll probably remember if we can throw a quick little trailer on if you need.
Sure.
But
no.
yeah.
I'm running cold.
He has custody over McKenna,
Mm-hmm.
Grace's character Mary. She's like a genius, and he's kind of getting her back into school, like not homeschool. Like she's going to go to school. She's got to make friends. She's got to relate to the people around her better than she has.
Oh boy.
And so that opens some doors about her relationship with her teachers and stuff like that. But she is sent to public school, and that is not where geniuses belong in the eyes of Chris Evans' estranged mother in a lot of ways. And so she's played by Lindsay Duncan.
Okay.
And so she is coming to have a little custody battle and raise this child in a way that she sees better fit.
I see. Yeah, I definitely can see how this could possibly be a bit triggering. But it's funny. I have to ask if McKenna Grace is legitimately a genius in real life, because she just keeps playing geniuses.
Yeah, she does.
In
I think
the Ghostbusters movies now.
Yeah, I think she was in like Young Sheldon or Big Bang Theory or something.
Yeah.
So that's kind of funny how there's some of those ties.
Right.
There's also like the tie that she played like Miss Marvel, and Chris Evans played Captain America, as you mentioned.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Octavia Spencer's in this as well.
Oh, I do love Octavia Spencer.
Yeah, so she's really great in this. Jenny Slate, who I always find to be super funny.
Yeah.
And I think Chris Evans and her dated after this movie.
Really?
For a little bit, yeah.
Man, go Jenny Slate.
Oh, so you're saying she's like
she's Captain America. I mean, come on.
There you go. Yeah,
that's America's ass.
Yeah, directed by Marc Webb, so it's got that 500 Days of Summer.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
Vibes.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
So I really like this movie. It deals with some stuff that can be a little heavy. This movie takes place in Pinellas County. Well, fictional Pinellas County, Florida.
Nobody would ever make a movie here otherwise.
That's where we live. That's where we live. There's nothing other than that other than they mention like that multiple times. I think they live in Florida, but like this is like it's when they have to go to court at some point in the movie. It's in Pinellas County court system. Nothing other than that is like it's not like actually shot in Pinellas County. There's no like schools that they go to that are Pinellas County school.
Sure.
It's just literally like
it's
just the name of the court basically. But you know, in theory, this is technically takes place in Pinellas County.
Okay,
Florida.
Well, keep our eye open. Maybe they did film some of it here.
Yeah, I'm not sure. There's some boat docks and like that could be any boat dock in America. Who knows?
All right. Well, you know, I'm definitely willing to give this a try. It's the last episode of the year, so I guess I kind of have to.
Yeah, you don't really have a choice.
That's
the genius of this gimmick. You have to watch this.
Well, let's just see if this movie really is a gift. So what Ray and I are going to do right now is we are going to go watch Gifted. We invite you to do the same if you have not watched this movie. Pause the podcast, go watch it, come back, unpause, and see if I love this movie as much as Ray does.
Ray and Rob are currently watching the film. You may be also watching the film. If you're not, then you're listening to me say that Ray and Rob are watching the film. They'll be right back when they're done watching the film.
All right, everyone. Ray and I are back from St. Pete, Florida. No, that Ray and I have personal experience. This is not St. Pete, Florida.
No, and that was not Ferg's.
That was not
the bar
Ferg's.
that they were attending. We do have a bar in St. Pete called Ferg's, but that was not it.
That is not it.
I thought it was such an interesting little like thing just to put the Ferg's name on there.
Yeah, I was super interested. So I looked it up real fast, and it says on the wiki page that the writer wrote the screenplay to take place in St. Pete. But he couldn't convince the producers to do it because we did not have a film incentive,
Georgia's
tax incentive at that time. So they moved to Georgia. So the whole film was made in Georgia.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely know it wasn't here. If Chris Evans was in Pinellas County, we would have known about it.
Right.
But, all right. So I said this movie might be a bit triggering. Did you find it so?
Oh, you weren't lying. Yeah. No, it's hard. I have to. My conversation is going to be interesting because it's going to be hard to parse out the movie and reality a bit for me. So
and we've kind of just really quickly mentioned it's going to be tough to like make sure we talk about the movie enough and not just what the movie's talking about,
right?
Because there is a lot to
for
kind of a simple, straightforward movie. It touches on a lot of different kind of like
definitely
a lot of different themes,
big questions, which we like to ask here.
And I actually have one.
Do you? Okay,
I think
good.
so. There's a line that Evelyn, the grandmother, says when it's her day in court and she's on the stand and she's kind of getting rocked by Chris Evans' lawyer a little bit at first.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
But then she has her little tirade back. Mm-hmm. And the question that she hasn't asked this question. She says this as a statement, but I'm going to pose it as a question to us to maybe think about as we direct this conversation. But she says in regards to her daughter Diane, special people or gifted people, they're accountable for their gifts they are given. Not a direct quote, it's paraphrased, but gifted people have a responsibility to max out those gifts.
Right.
Even if that, and I think in Evelyn's way, she's kind of saying even that means living a life a little different from others.
Sure.
So I think as we talk about maybe perspective in this movie and what their end game goals were, maybe we can kind of think about where we lie on that debate.
Sure. Do gifted people have a greater responsibility to the world than to themselves? Kind of,
yeah. Something close to that.
Okay.
They're accountable. Are they accountable for their gifts? Do they owe us more?
Sure. I think that's a question. All right.
And maybe to tackle this, where we can make sure we're talking about the movie as much as the topics. I was thinking we talk about POV a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Let's talk about perspective, and let's start with Frank, Chris Evans.
Yeah.
This is not Captain America Chris Evans.
It is not.
This is normal dude.
Right.
Chris Evans did other things outside of MCU. This was one of them. And I really like his Frank character here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such. I think he is a very interesting character in this movie for many reasons. But I like, you know, he's clearly also a smart guy,
Yeah, you can
and
tell just the way he talks to his niece
right,
that he talks at a higher level than he doesn't talk down to her.
right, and then that I obviously appreciate. Being the parent of a gifted child, like that's one thing that I always take pride in is not talking down to them,
Right.
and I think that that's such a important part of it is
Yeah, you've told me this
realizing
ad nauseum.
right, right. What
Quote
is
from the
as
movie.
nauseum? What is as nauseum?
So
But yeah,
you did go to school.
and it's funny. I've seen that look 1,000 times.
Yeah.
like when. But anyway, it's so it's a balancing act, and so he understands the consequences, and
Yeah.
obviously, this coming from the death of his sister, which he clearly feels very guilty about,
Right.
and kind of goes into it at certain points in the movie, and I think it one of the elements about this movie that I find almost I'm going to use the word lacking a little bit, and it comes from his from his character, not his character so much, but his story, I guess, is he is clearly a smart guy, as I said. He comes from a family that has a prodigy child in it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't him. And throughout this movie, he has such an interesting relationship with Evelyn, his mother. And I feel like they don't explore the reconnection that needs to happen between them and kind of that point of view of him where it's, I'm not the gifted child. But so when they go, I know this is kind of out of order a little bit, but when Mary goes to Boston and they're flipping through photo albums, there are no pictures of him.
Right.
So it's not, and he's not a rando. It's his.
No.
It's her.
Maybe
it's
her son. The firstborn.
Right. Probably firstborn, her son, and all those pictures are of her and the daughter.
Yeah.
And I think that is such a heartbreaking element of this movie that I think maybe could have been explored a little more.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about, think live to that and what I feel about it because, I don't feel like I ever long to see Chris Evans. Like, I don't want to see Chris Evans reunite with Evelyn per se. And I don't because she's horrible, my opinion.
But that's more because of her than him. You know
Right.
what I mean? Yeah.
But I'm completely on his side with the wanting to be distant from her. You got to remember at the end of the day, he has a lot of ammo against her that we don't learn to the very end, where
Sure.
he is convinced that she played a large part in the suicide.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It did. I mean, I think that was pretty obvious for the most part in the movie. Once she enters on the screen, you're like, oh, I get it now.
Yes. She's a very exacting woman.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely feel like, seeing him deal with his guilt. I think he has a great line when he talks about his sister suicide. He's like, "There's no way I should have known, but I should have known."
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's again, the movie doesn't talk about suicide like a ton, but that is such I would imagine something you would feel so heavily.
Yeah.
When you have to deal with that, and that's literally thrown in his face every time he looks at Mary.
Right.
But that isn't, that's an interesting thing. We're talking about what his POV is, and his, what is his relationship with his mother? Does he want one or not?
Right. And there's a line when there's she says "Oh, I wish we weren't at odds on this," and he's like, "We're always at odds."
Right.
And I wish we knew why. I feel like we can kind of gather, I guess,
Yeah.
just that he doesn't. We can gather that he did not have the relationship with her that the sister had simply because he didn't fit the role. That he wasn't the genius, she was the genius, so he was neglected.
Yeah.
And I think I can glean all of that, you know what I mean, from this. But I do wish, like I said, I found myself wanting that explored at least a little bit more. And I'm not even saying to the point where, like you said, there was some kind of reconciliation at the end. But I felt like it was a little bit of a short change for Frank, the character.
Sure.
Because it was almost like, even as from a writing standpoint, he's kind of being pushed to the side. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's being pushed to the side in his life too. So
Sure.
I mean, it could be just kind of like the device of the movie, to make you feel that way for him. But it just it is what it is.
I think there's some easy fixes they could have done there, and like you said, maybe that happens, but it's not. It's just so not put into words enough because or maybe just explain that he ran away from his mom when when Mary was born, and he basically hid. He works in a he repairs engines as like an independent contractor
Right,
on
he's
boats,
freelance.
probably to stay off tax revenue, so he couldn't be found for as long as possible,
Sure.
and some of that kind of stuff. And so maybe he had difficulty standing up for her in the past, but in this movie he's standing up for her.
Right.
He's standing up to her to protect Mary. Like, if he did maybe a little more of that.
Yeah.
Instead of you maybe just like insinuating that or feeling that or hoping that's the backstory, that would have been, hit that that point of his character, that, or fill that arc of his character that maybe you're like longing for.
Yeah, I can agree. And the crux of his character in this whole movie is really him trying to, find this balance for Mary,
Yeah.
of her, what he believes his sister would have wanted.
Yeah.
To have her be a kid.
Yeah.
And because clearly she wasn't allowed to be one,
Diane,
and then, and this gifted element
Right.
of her, you know what I mean? And where are the lines?
Yeah.
What lines are you willing to cross, and which ones, are you not? And so, he sends her to public school.
Yep.
Which, it's so funny, speaking from experience, how you would think it's like more teachers would be like Jenny Slate, where
Bonnie.
it's like Bonnie, and like and you see this kid who is extremely smart, and and you can tell there's more going on there,
Right.
and be willing to do something about it or help or whatever. And then, but in reality, it'll shock you how many aren't.
Yeah.
And like, it's not a derogatory like towards the teaching profession in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
It's the most important in the world. But like,
It really is the most basic thing.
right? But it's like you bang your head on the wall sometimes,
Yeah.
because you're just trying to get through this.
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I mean,
it
it's
can
called
be difficult.
Yeah, it's called
it can be difficult.
Yeah. It's called differentiated instruction.
There you go.
Every kid's different, so treat them
Yep.
different. But we do live in a system where it feels like we're made to be more of the same and
Right.
not to be different.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
absolutely.
And so that's what's interesting too about Chris Evans' character in this movie, is in some ways that is what he wants for Mary. Like,
Yeah.
he already feels she different, and I do think part of his arc too is like finally like really, really, truly accepting that he does want Mary in his life at all times,
Right.
and he really can't live without her. But yeah, so in a way he wants her to this would be like probably not an appropriate way to say it, but like a dumbed down life in a
Well,
way.
no, I mean, he literally says, "Dumb her down into a decent
Yes,
human being."
that's true, he
Like,
does.
he literally says that at
Yeah.
one point, and like, and it's hard because I understand where he's coming from, but and obviously all characters need to have weakness and need in
Right.
a movie, and he has that. So it's like at this point, while you're rooting for him, you don't have to think that he's perfect or even what he's doing is right. And I
Right.
think that that's kind of the whole point.
Which is what I think is really interesting about his character, because you
Yeah.
might disagree,
Right.
but he's so scared that she's going to end up like his sister.
Right, and there's an understanding to that as well, and because like even with like the offer of the gifted school, he's like, it's a reinforcement that she's different,
Right.
and it's like, yeah, I get that,
Yeah.
but it's there's still a balancing act,
Of course.
and I think that's the thing that he has to learn through this movie, and obviously in the end he does learn it, because he does put her in.
Like
She goes to like college
half day.
college half day or whatever. Like
yeah, she's
for
in
math.
Girl Scouts, and she goes
yeah.
back to regular school too.
Right. So I mean, it's like so he does have that growth through the movie and understanding. But I understand his fear. Where it's like there's one point where he's like, I don't know if it's Bonnie Stevenson. That's her
Good
name.
morning, Mrs.
Right,
Stevenson.
Exactly. Where he like there. Well, what are you afraid of? And he's like, that I'll ruin Mary's life.
Right.
And I'm just, when he said that, I'm like, God,
Yeah.
I've been there.
That's parenting. but that's
that
parenting.
is parenting.
But
It
he
absolutely
feels
is.
like he feels like that he's worse because he's not the biological parent, and that's not true. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like every parent has the same fear because there isn't a manual to do it properly.
Right.
But I think that 1 degree difference of not being her birthday, like it puts more stress on his character, that he's more worried. He feels more like there's extra responsibility that he has to be more perfect because he's not the biological parent.
Sure,
and it's tough, and it's not true.
The guilt to the sister,
Right.
and like all of
Not
that,
helping her,
and right.
That maybe maybe she's living as a life without a parent because of him. That's
right.
a lot of tough stuff.
Yeah, I know. I mean, there's like that scene where there's like the blow up, and he's like, "Can I just get 5 minutes of my own life?"
Yeah.
Which the short answer is no. Like
you're a parent.
You're
no.
a parent. No, you don't. Sorry.
Right.
Like that's not how that works.
But as a parent, you chose that path in a lot of ways, and he didn't.
And he didn't, and that's fair. But so it's hard because you can see he kind of has these rules, this arbitrary systems put in place where like the thing where she goes with Roberta, who I do think is a great side character.
Yeah.
She's not in it a lot.
No.
But Octavia Spencer really does kind of, I think, does the max that she can with what she's given as far as this movie goes.
Yeah.
But like where she keeps her on Friday nights or whatever, and she's not allowed in the apartment until noon on Saturdays or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like trying to find this, these little pockets of, for himself. Which I mean, and as a parent, it is true. Like you should do that. You should try to find these little pockets here or there. But obviously, your life is your kid. But and obviously because he didn't choose it, you can feel moments of resentment in there, but he's very upfront, like even tells Mary, like after that blow up, like, I'm not mad at you, I'm mad at me, and all of that. And it's just owning up to that kind of thing.
Yeah, I love their conversation too. It kind of felt real to me because you say things to your kids sometimes that you're like, I wish I didn't say that. You know what I mean? And so she's like, do you really wish I wasn't here, or that you had more time to yourself? And he's like, he doesn't say no,
right?
Because he kind of does, and she's too smart for him just to lie to. You don't help her by lying. He's like, well, you said you wished, I was the worst uncle ever, and you wished death upon me. Did you mean that?
Right. Yeah.
She's like, not entirely.
Because he didn't get a piano. Yeah, not entirely.
So she doesn't say no either. Like, yeah, I kind of did, but
yeah, in that moment.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. So I know. I think that I just think they have a good relationship there. But another thing that, and I don't know if this dives into Mary's POV too much, but Mary does like math. And she does want to be challenged.
Yeah.
So, Frank forcing her to be dumbed down a little bit it's kind of, I don't know if Mary would choose it for herself. You know what I mean? So that there's an interesting thing there if you're thinking about, if you just look at this whole movie as Frank is right and Evelyn is just wrong.
Right.
I don't know if that's 100% the right way to think about it either. I don't think the movie's trying to say that Frank is absolutely right.
I don't think so.
So I think that's an important thing to acknowledge.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, and then like I said earlier, with Frank, there's an arc there. There has to be. Every character needs a weakness and need, and that is understanding, like finding that true balance and not just the fear.
Right.
Because take it from, again, a parent who is in a similar situation. Like the fear is real.
Yeah.
And you're always constantly worried that you're screwing up.
Yeah.
And you should do more, or you should put them in different situations that are more advantageous to that overall question that we're talking about. This idea of, do they have greater responsibility to the world than to themselves? But you do want them to be kids, and you do want them to be able to live a life that they can look back on and have enjoyed, and not end up clearly like his sister, who commits suicide.
Yeah, yeah. We don't want that for Mary. Kind of late in the movie, obviously, this battle for Mary's custody ensues, and they ended up making a plea deal, or not plea deal, but a bargain deal with each other of some sort of compromise.
Right.
COM promise. That's a Stranger Things quote. But where the resolution, I guess, is that Mary's going to live in a foster family in Tampa, on the other side of the bay.
Which is not Tampa. That's not Tampa.
Yeah. And he gets to see her a little bit. Evelyn's supposedly going to see her a little bit too.
Yeah.
She's but she's going to have better living conditions than she has with Frank. So, like, again, a compromise of sorts. Yeah. And again, there was that tough debate if he should take the compromise or not.
Right.
I don't think he should have.
No,
but
this is a part of the movie that just felt so weird to me. Like this plea deal, just in general or whatever, like just on both sides, it felt
well,
weird.
it only makes sense to me is if Evelyn knew she was going to break it the whole time.
Right,
You know
and
what I mean?
you're right, and that's probably what it is. But even with that, like, and there are things about. I was shocked how quickly this turned into a courtroom movie.
Mm.
Like, I mean, how quickly we were in a courtroom. You
Sure.
know what I mean? Like, and because it isn't even like a Mrs. Doubtfire situation where like you're in court pretty quick in that movie, but then you're pretty much out of court. You know, and the rest of the movie takes place. This you're in the court pretty much off and on for
ping pong scenes for a little bit.
At least half the movie. You're in and out of court, and so like I said, it kind of took me by surprise a little bit how quickly the grandmother shows up, and then you're in court. But like I said, the overall result of it just felt so weird because it just I couldn't imagine that for either side that felt like winning just because and this this could kind of get into Mary's point of view, and we'll talk more about it I'm sure when we get to Mary, but just like the resentment that was clearly going to happen for everybody involved.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it felt like this, even from a court standing, it's just like this seems like a terrible idea. You know, and like I will admit at this part the movie lost me a little bit.
Okay.
Where when it got to this point where it was like this is the deal, because you're going to put this little girl with a foster family, she's going to end up hating both her uncle and her grandmother, and then like in 3 years she's supposed to make a choice about who she's going to live with. She's not going to want to live with either one of them because she's going to feel abandoned by both. Like it was super weird to me. So like if this wasn't, I don't know, this isn't based on a true story.
No.
Okay. Like it didn't feel real, I guess, in my mind. Like it felt just like a movie thing, what I mean? Like a device.
Yeah, I think like I said, I think I see it as Evelyn, like this was a trick basically that Evelyn was playing. And I think when we talk more about Evelyn, like we can discuss like if she would even care how Mary feels about her toward, in that regard.
Sure.
But so I think that's how I view it. And then I just view Frank as he didn't want the deal. He was like, this is stupid. But his lawyer kind of, with all like decent intentions, because he thought he was going to lose or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think it, how it happened. But because I think even Chris Evans' character says like, why would they offer this deal? It doesn't make any sense.
Because it doesn't.
Right. but that's agree. That's how I mean. Like she knew she wasn't going to follow it the whole time.
Yeah.
So I think that's how I get past that possible plot hole in my brain.
Yeah. Let's shift gears to Evelyn, because when they drive up, and I think it's a great intro scene. You kind of drive up, you kind of already heard about her, like like she's literally British, like she's very British, like I mean like literally, but no, she's literally British, and like so when they pull up and like there's a lady standing outside the door.
Oh, yeah? Who is it? Thinking it's Roberta or something.
Know. And then like that would be your grandmother. Holy shit. Like that was just, I mean, that was great line delivery and kind of a great little intro for grandmother or Evelyn.
Yeah.
And I think this scene it worked to kind of like set up the dynamics that you're going to deal with going forward, because clearly Evelyn, and I think there is probably some nuance that we'll talk about, but for the most part she wants a trophy.
Sure.
And I think Mary is the trophy.
Yeah, I think there. Yeah,
or could be. I should say could be.
Yeah, she wants to explore her. She definitely wants to find out if she is. Right. Yeah, there's some depth to Evelyn's character, but you're right. So at the end of the day, she thinks, or at least she lets people think that she thinks the reason that she wants Mary is because she, Chris Evans, Frank, the character, is not providing good enough living conditions.
Right.
The apartment is small. She doesn't have a room completely for herself.
Yeah.
Dedicated to her.
Yeah.
She's not really with any family. A couple other reasons, but this is why she's like, you aren't the best provider. Evelyn definitely seems like she has money,
right?
So she can provide her with a better life, and so that's one of the questions the movie asks: is that a better life? Just having a bigger house,
sure,
and more access to quick funds. I think we see all the time. Rich kids aren't always the best kids.
Right. No, and I think that's absolutely fair. And I think, part of it besides just that is also, they look at it, the access to education, because
Sure.
obviously that's kind of the thing. But
because Frank turned down, as you mentioned earlier, Frank turned down private
Right.
school, which she says that's obviously a horrible thing to do, and public school is not going to do her any justice.
Right. Which clearly that's how, she got involved, is because the principal ended up contacting her
Yeah.
about the possibility of this school or whatever.
Yeah.
And
Howard School, which is not a real Pinellas County school.
right, no, it is not. But and so because like the glimmer of what she lost, which, and you can take,
And Diane.
right, in either Diane the daughter or the mathematical equation,
Yeah.
we can talk a little bit about what she really lost in her mind.
Sure.
She sees the possibility of either a second chance
Yeah.
at either the equation or her daughter. Again,
Right.
we could discuss which one we really think she's after, but
Yeah.
uh,
One of my
Yeah.
favorite lines of the movie is, I stand by that statement, is when that first meeting with Mary and Evelyn, and Mary's like, "Can I call you Grandma?" And she's like, "Grandma or Evelyn."
grandmother or Evelyn.
Grandmother or Evelyn, and then Chris Evans, though, at the end of that conversation, is like, "All right, say goodbye to grandmother or Evelyn."
Right.
But I think I think it's a funny little line, but Evelyn's saying like, "You could call me Grandma, but I'd much prefer you call me Evelyn by my name, because
Right.
I don't really like it." Kind of lets you know, like, from the jump there, she's not really looking for this, like, in my opinion, she isn't looking for like a second chance at a daughter.
Right.
She's looking for, like, as you mentioned, like a second hand at figuring out this math problem.
Yeah.
Getting this fame and recognition.
Yeah.
And so, I think then, another thing that I immediately think of with that line is that idea of, like, people who use their kids or living vicariously through their kids to fulfill their own goals.
Right. And I think that, as from a POV standpoint, as we've talked about with Frank, his fear of Mary being, kind of shuffled around from think tank to think tank because she's, a genius or whatever, and and basically not having a childhood or anything like that, or again ending up like the sister. You have that fear, and then you've got the grandmother who wants her to have all of these benefits, but not because she necessarily wants the best for her, but because she wants this, particular mathematical equation solved, or
Right.
Whatever. So you've got these two characters, and obviously, as I said earlier, but characters need weaknesses and need, and the truth really does probably lie in the middle.
Sure.
Like, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like, Chris Evans, Frank needs to not have the fear of, Mary embracing her gifted nature, but it also doesn't need to go to the point where she's basically an experiment,
Right,
which is
exactly.
what Evelyn wants,
Yeah.
like a workhorse to try to, solve this impossible mathematical equation that, sure, okay, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you're going to solve it, and then what? Which is the ultimate question, really, at the end, when Chris Evans reveals that, the equation has been solved this entire time.
Right.
And he reveals that his sister basically had asked, like, well, what do I do now?
Yeah.
You know
exactly.
what I mean? Where it's
exactly.
like, when you live your life so singularly focused, when you finish it, then what's left?
And it brings her suicide into such a bigger light when you know that
Absolutely.
she did that. When
Yeah.
she finished that and thought that.
Yeah. And, obviously there's a buildup through this, through this movie of Evelyn kind of sussing out Mary's gifts.
Mm-hmm.
Like taking her to Boston, taking her to the university, and
Yeah.
or whatever, and like meeting that guy Shankman or whatever, and
Yeah.
so, and I thought that was kind of like a fun little scene where it was like, he
Little Goodwill Hunting-ish.
right, where it's like, oh, he thinks, oh, she can't actually solve the problem, whatever, and then it's like, oh, the problem's all wrong, like,
Right.
and
He was
like,
trying to trick her.
he was trying to
She didn't correct him only because she was trying to be polite, not because she couldn't
right,
do it.
like, people don't like a smartass.
Yeah.
But like, nobody likes a smartass. But and it was a good way to kind of like, again, kind of get the two worlds that she lives in, like, Frank's world, and then the world of her mind,
Right.
And what her abilities. So, I think that was good, but it goes to show, with the frustration that she had with Mary, like when the initial inability to solve the equation, you could see like her desperation,
Yeah.
kind of going to what you were saying about this idea of living through her and like
Vicariously, yeah.
right, and getting this workhorse to do this. And so you can see where this would ultimately lead. I think even from
Yeah.
that point, you can see where this is going to ultimately lead.
Yeah, I really, I find such a powerful line in the movie. It like when Chris Evans kind of throws the solution to this millennium problem at Evelyn's feet, and he kind of, she's like, she would have told me if she did this or whatever,
Right.
and she's like, why haven't you published this? This must be a fake. And when Chris Evans says, like, well, I was told to publish it post-mortem.
Oh, my God, yeah.
And she's like, well, she's already dead.
And he's like, wasn't her death that I was talking about. And he's like, oh,
I just
like,
feel like
that was good.
Yeah,
That was good.
Such a recontextualization, again, of Diane and Evelyn's relationship, or proof.
Right.
And he's had this weapon against, and then you also know in the back of your mind, Chris Evans had this weapon against her the whole time, and he wasn't going to use it. He wasn't going to make her, like, stab her in the heart like that, when he could have, and maybe would have been justified too.
Right.
And it kind of gives Chris Evans' character some depth, but also, like, you had the gun all the time. You should have used it when you needed to.
Right. Well, there's a part when I mentioned earlier, when they go to Boston and Mary and Evelyn are sitting there and they're looking at the picture books, which don't have Chris Evans, which again I think is a thing that should have been explored. But she says, like, you and my mom were always together. And the first thing that popped in my mind was like, well, yeah, why do you think she killed herself?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
she was basically the helicopter parent,
right?
And that's the thing that's hard. Obviously you see this in sports because of parents trying to live for their kids who think they're going to be the next
Hall of Famer, millionaire,
right?
Either retirement funds.
Right. And then, I see it with kids who are, who are gifted, and it's that the parents that are like, oh, you're going to change the world.
Right.
And I know it. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like,
it's a little bit of weight to put on their shoulders.
It is. And that's why you feel for Frank in that way, through the whole movie. So it is an effective device because, as you said, like, Frank's not perfect, but you do root for Frank and you don't root for Evelyn.
Right.
So I do think, most people instinctively want to go with this idea of, like, kids should need to be kids and they need to, live a life that is full and fulfilled. And even with this, instead of this, like, you need to basically put a yoke on your back and, start pulling.
Right.
You know what
exactly.
I mean? Like, and I think that's, so as a viewer, you naturally are going to side with Frank, even with his faults.
Sure. I totally agree with that. And I think, kind of what you're saying, like, to me, Evelyn doesn't want to be grandma. She wants to be this coach or this leader of this human being to solve this problem. And when she's on the stand in court and they're challenging her mothering tactics, the line that another line that she says, other than the what we posed the question around, is, she has a responsibility that goes beyond mother-daughter relationship. Like,
right.
So, like, mother-daughter relationship, sure, that's something there, but she has something that's more important than mother-daughter relationship. And in my mind, like, there isn't anything more important than that for your daughter. Like, if you would have got that, if you would have got that, she might still be alive.
Yeah.
At the end of the movie, when Frank leaves with Mary, he gets her back, just takes her back, and finally just stand up and do something.
Right.
He leaves Evelyn. They've made this deal basically where Evelyn's not going to try to take Mary anymore if she gets the millennial problem and gets to defend it and put it out in the world and get all the fame she wanted.
Right.
Evelyn kind of breaks down. And I always think every time I watch the movie, like, why is she crying? Is she crying because the problem is solved and she's going to get everything she wants? Like, is she happy in a way that her daughter accomplished, and maybe she feels vindicated?
Yeah.
Is she sad that it was been solved for so long and she didn't know about it because her daughter hated her?
Right.
Is there, like, what do you think? If you had to take a guess of why Evelyn's crying there, what's your perspective?
I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt, and I do actually think there is a bit of it that she realizes the role she played in her daughter's death.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to stop her from taking full advantage of, like, the spoils. But I'm going to give her a benefit of the doubt a little bit and say she does kind of realize in that moment that she contributed to the death of her daughter.
Yeah.
And so, I think that there's a couple of, redeeming moments, if you will, for Evelyn, and it's hard to fathom, but I think that they're there. And one of them is, again, going back to the well again of the scene with the pictures, and when Mary finds the book of her when she was young, when Evelyn was young, and she was a mathematician, and then she, tells the story of coming to America, marrying her grandfather, and then coming to America, and then Mary's like, oh, and you did math here, and it was no, like I had kids, and like so in that moment you can feel for Evelyn a little bit for what she gave up.
Sure.
And what she feels like she gave up. Now, I'm not saying it justifies what she does or did, but I do think that is an attempt to three-dimensionalize her character to make you understand.
I get that. I think for me, I always hear resentment. Like she resents her kids.
I'm not disagreeing that either.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't think that's entirely untrue. It kind of goes back to with Frank. Like, I have 5 minutes of my own life, and you're like, no. And that's a question that I'm sure she thought herself multiple times then,
100%.
but didn't. And like I said, I'm not saying justify. I'm not saying it justifies anything. I just think it was the spark that lit the fuse.
Right. Yeah. And they really don't maybe explain enough about why. Like, why did you have kids? Is your husband force you to? Like, you know what I mean? Or was this a conscious decision, or you thought it would be easier than it was, or whatever? But let's talk about Mary a little bit.
Yeah, let's switch to the Mary point of view, because let's talk to her like she's actually in the room. You know what I mean? Like, we're not gonna.
McKenna Grace is great.
This. She's so good. I think McKenna Grace is truly underrated. We mentioned it in the before section. She's in Ghostbusters and the 2 new Ghostbusters movies, and I think she's great in that. I think, and again, playing a genius kind of character, so she's getting typecast clearly.
Well, typecast are like she was so great and gifted, like she would be perfect for this.
Right.
You know what I mean? But
and she's so good. And that was really my first exposure to her, was Ghostbusters Afterlife. New, and I thought,
she's also in Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel. She's young Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel.
But she's only, I don't think she speaks in that.
I know she's she's obviously in more things now as she's gotten older. But I think her, I think about Dakota Fanning, like the Man on Fire, like that was a performance, of a young girl who really just kind of like captures your heart. And I really put her, McKenna Grace's turn in this movie on that same level.
Sure.
Where it's just like, she's just magnetic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And she really, you just love her almost immediately.
Even when she's being moody. You know what I mean?
Right. But again, like, for me, I completely understand. And that is one thing, as far as, a parent, being, again, a parent, child on the spectrum, and, it's how all of the things that go with that. And I will say, I still think that there is a little bit of dilution of reality in this movie when it comes to that kind of thing, just because there is a difficulty. Sure. And I think it's even more difficult than what they portray in this movie.
Oh, of course.
Because, obviously she's on the spectrum. Her speech patterns tell me that, and like all of these things, in this movie. And I'm not saying McKenna Grace is, I have no idea. But like,
we're talking about
Mary as a character is. And I think there's still, I will say that I've not run into a movie yet that I feel like fully captures it, but this one does a pretty decent job of it. You know what I mean? Of just like the struggles that kids go with, especially when they're, they have this kind of intellect, and then the social emotional, struggles that they go through are real.
For sure.
And that's probably why, teachers don't always, aren't willing to be as understanding,
flexible,
as flexible as they need to be. Exactly.
Of course, they're overworked and underpaid, and their classrooms are too big, and all that other stuff that goes into it too.
That's absolutely true.
But I think it's interesting, with Mary, is obviously she's brilliant, and everybody would be like, wow, what a gift! Like, gifts are great.
Right.
You should be so happy that you are this brilliant. But like, you can't argue that being so different isn't good. Like, being brilliant, sure, that everybody would like to be smart.
Right.
But being different isn't fun.
No.
You know what I mean? And I think when they do like the show and tell, and she brings in the cat, because I think that
Fred is such
one eye.
Great cat character.
Yeah, and that cat had 2 eyes in real life. That's all CGI. So this is a pretty CGI heavy movie.
What?
Just so you know. Yeah.
Oh my God, I did not know that.
Yeah, but she brings in Fred, and she shows or she says something like nobody likes him at first when they look at him, or something to that extent.
Yeah.
And in the way she's talking about herself, or that's why she relates to Fred.
Yeah.
So you get some some good comments there, but I also like too, Mary can kind of hide behind her, this, I don't want to go to school because it's too simple, it's too easy, it's not
Right.
fun. And then when her and Frick are having that conversation, and she kind of has an honest moment where she's like, well, what if they don't like me?
Yeah.
Because there's also that too.
There's
You know what I
definitely
mean? It's
that.
not just school's boring and I
Yep.
don't like it. It's because of all the social, you learn that in school. Like, you don't have those tools when you go to school.
Yeah.
You can't. You're just living with your parents unless you've done preschool and all that kind of stuff. But I'm saying
Right.
generally, so you learn that social stuff, big group social stuff,
Yeah.
through school, and it's hard. It doesn't just come easy for everyone.
No, not at all. And especially, and there's different ways, obviously with her, she's a bit sarcastic in how she handles it. She's a bit defensive in the front. But there's the flip to that where, you go in and you're super excited and at the possibility.
I'm gonna
And
make
then,
friends.
right,
and, yeah.
exactly. And then you get slapped down.
Yeah.
And that's another side of that coin.
Yeah.
And the trauma that can come with that
Sure.
is real.
Yeah.
And you deal with almost kind of forever, like, in all honesty.
Yeah.
So I think that but for her it's different. It's like the idiot friends, or
Yeah.
whatever. It's like this almost playful defense mechanism.
Yeah. Right.
So
Yeah. I like when she attacks the bully. That's that one thing. Like,
yeah,
because a lot of times these brilliant people maybe aren't the best at communicating
sure,
needs on the spot, but they always have compassion.
right.
That's the
Need
most
for
basic.
social justice. Yeah.
That's that most basic human instinct is try to help people around you.
Yeah.
And kids obviously do that better than adults do.
Yeah.
And I also love when they're at the school that Chris Evans isn't mad at her. He's like, she was defending somebody. Yes,
Right,
hitting
man.
is wrong, but give me
Yeah.
a break.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's I've seen so many parents have conversations like that where
Yep,
it's like,
been
so my
there.
kid did something good, but it's just wrong in this environment.
Yeah,
right,
you can't hit
essentially.
people. I get it. Like, I understand.
But I'm proud of her,
Yeah, but
too.
Right. Yep.
So
I
it's just
absolutely
that
understand.
kind of stuff felt real to me.
Yeah.
Too, like those kind of conversations. Those are real life examples of things that happen.
Yeah.
100%.
100%.
Yeah.
I think, another interesting element of her character is, so during the court, her biological father shows
Yeah.
up. And I'm just going to say this right now. He was definitely given a check. It was a check. He got one. I don't want to
From
care what
Evelyn?
it's like. From Evelyn. I
Yeah.
don't care what anybody's. He got a check. But through the questioning from the lawyer, you realizes, like, he doesn't know her middle name.
Yeah.
Doesn't know anything.
Never
like,
looked
never
for
really
her.
never looked for her. Like, he is there simply because Evelyn found him
Right.
and paid him money to try to get this. And clearly, it didn't go her way, at least in this regard.
Yeah.
But her reaction to him being like, they're finding out that he was there and he didn't, like, not wanting to know, doesn't even want to see what I look like.
Yeah. He wasn't
was
like sorry.
heartbreaking.
Yeah. He wasn't like sorry for the missed opportunity. Can we reconnect? He was
Yeah.
like, no, we lost this court case. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
it was
it
heartbreaking.
whew,
She's like,
her
if I-
response was,
Yeah. She's like, if I had
"Ugh."
a kid, I'd want to see them. You
Right.
know? It really was. And it kind of tells you, like, she knows more about what's going on.
Totally.
Than
Yeah.
like you like.
Kids aren't idiots.
Yeah.
I know people really want to
Yeah.
think that. Like, they honestly have convinced themselves that kids are idiots. They're not idiots. There is an ignorance. Sometimes there is an ignorance of life, but sometimes they will shock you
Sure.
about the conceptual understanding that
Right.
they have. I mean, they will shock you.
Exactly.
And I think this is obviously a great example of that.
Yeah, and obviously, I think Mary has a good line too when she's with like the social worker or the therapist.
Yeah.
And when she says that line about wanting to stay with Frank because he wanted me before I was smart.
Right.
And to me, that's a comment about Evelyn. She's
Yeah.
like, I know Evelyn wants me and she's cool and stuff, but she only wants me because I'm smart. She knows that.
Yeah.
Like, Evelyn isn't tricking her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So again, it just kind of shows her character's POV it's further along than at least Evelyn would give it credit for.
Yeah. Well, and it's I think for Mary, keeping it on Mary, like, relationships can be difficult.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Just like, and that's why, she connects with, like, Roberta. You know what I mean? Kind of connects with older people
Sure.
and stuff like that, because because sometimes, especially with kids like this, where their conceptual understanding does go beyond even like your normal regular kid. Um, I think, and sometimes it's hard, and clearly like the social worker, which that scene was a bit weird too, just because like I don't feel like it necessarily went anywhere.
I think it's the worst scene of the movie.
It doesn't really
I think
go
it's
anywhere.
just for that line, honestly.
Yeah, and I think you're probably right. And but it's hard sometimes for people to understand that.
Yeah.
And see kids as that, and even having the ability to do that. You know what I mean? Connect with somebody like Roberta. Like, oh, what is she in your school or whatever? It's
yeah.
Like, no, she's like 40 or 50. Like, oh, like that, and then all of a sudden that's a bad thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, why does that? It made no sense to me. Like, why she thought that was a bad thing.
Yeah.
It was. A lot of her responses were weird in that scene.
Yeah, especially for a professional, right?
Yeah,
like not just somebody
absolutely.
on the street. You know what I mean? It's like she's essentially my babysitter. I mean,
Right.
she's essentially my aunt. She's like one of my dad's best friends. So it's like it's not weird.
The response to that was very strange.
I hate when they do that kind of stuff in movies. It's like because she also looks down like, oh my god, he let you watch UFC? Right. No, judge, do not. He should lose custody over her. They watch UFC together,
right?
And they play around, and she has fun when they do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's so stupid. I hate that part of the movie, honestly.
Yeah,
because I'm like, you see that in movies all the time where the kid says too much honesty to the social worker, and
right.
you know what I mean. You kind of see it in like I think of like the Santa Claus or like where like he's like my dad's Santa Claus or whatever. Right. It's like oh my god, a parent tells his son he's Santa Claus, like he should lose custody and never see him again. Like I hate that kind of stuff.
No, I agree completely.
So yeah, I'd like skip over that. I'd skip over that part of the movie if I could in the future.
Fair enough. But it obviously all leads to what we mentioned earlier, this whole like weird deal that they work out.
She has to go live with Stranger Things' dad.
Right, which, for some reason. Like, it was the worst one of the Wheelers. Come on.
Yeah. If it was the mom, if it was Mrs. Wheeler, I'd be on board.
Right, it was Karen Wheeler. I'd be totally on board. But, yeah, no, like I said earlier, this whole thing just feels weird. This is kind of part of the movie where I think it, and maybe even stems from that, that scene with the social worker. But I think it's kind of continues in through this where it all just feels very weird. It doesn't feel real. This feels like just a movie convention for drama.
Yeah. And there is some good drama though. Like I feel like dropping Mary off and their reuniting scene are really well acted by McKenna Grace.
Absolutely. And then like you kind of get the where like they find that the cat's been dropped off, which is the clue to realize that
Evelyn
is there. Which again, like if I'm Frank at that point, I'm like, you're screwed, lady. Like you still have to like abide by the law too. Right. Like I get it, you're rich and you got a rich lawyer or whatever, but like I don't know, like it just felt a little weird to me, like where. I don't know, but obviously the reveal of the problem was the completed equation.
It's like Frank's had enough. He's like, all right, I'm pissed. I'm gonna break you down and win this fight.
Right, like I'm just gonna pull out the big guns, which you're right. He probably should have done from the beginning.
But maybe to your point, maybe he was trying to like keep some sort of relationship with his mom and almost knows that this is going to end it.
Yeah, maybe.
And he tried so long to hold off to pull that out, but he eventually was like, screw it.
And if they had done more with that, I think it would have landed a lot better. I completely agree.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so I think at this point, you kind of did you see where the new equilibrium is? So obviously, Frank makes this deal, and McKenna Grace, Mary can now like do probably what they should have done this whole time.
Yeah.
Where it's like kind of this hybrid thing where she, for mathematics, she goes to a college class, and then she does like Girl Scouts and public school.
And because this movie takes place in Florida and not Georgia, we do have a great homeschooling system with a virtual school.
There you go. I mean, you got
best in the country, probably. So, yeah, I think one plot hole of the movie is that the resolution of like what they're going to do with her should have been like the first thing you thought of,
right?
Not the last thing. Like, hey, we can do clubs. Like, she's obviously going to Girl Scouts now to make friends. Like, oh, there's ways to make friends other than going to school, and stuff. But again, he's compromised. I mean, he's doing what's best for her or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I like what the movie makes me feel throughout. I like what it makes me think about. So I'm glad to go on this journey, even though I'm like, we didn't really have to. She could have gone to clubs right away.
I think I can agree. I do, like I said, I think for me the third act, does get a little bit little
Wonky.
clunky,
Yeah.
little spluttery, if you will, like sputtery. It
Yeah.
just, I think it gets to where you want it to go, but yeah, I think ultimately, like, there are certain elements that you're like, I don't even know why you did this.
Right.
You know what I mean? It just feels unnecessary.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, Rob. Well, let's kind of circle back to the question of the episode. We've kind of laid out all the groundwork. We've talked about Frank's side, Evelyn's side, and now Mary's side. And Mary is the one with the gifts.
Right.
And so Frank's kind of compromising a little bit. He's letting her go to college to maybe kind of keep, expanding on those gifts. And it is a passion of hers.
Sure.
So he's compromising. But there still might come a time when Mary's going to have to go full in, dive straight in if she wants to, if she's going and decide she's going to want to become a famous mathematician or not.
Right.
Frank's going to have to be confronted with that sometime down the road. So, I think it's justified to think about, is Mary, even by the end of this movie, and all kids who are gifted or special, are they accountable for these gifts that they were given? Do they owe society, to give us their best effort to fulfill these gifts and be that one in a million that could save the world? Do they owe us that?
So, no. Short answer is no. And this comes from a
closer
parent,
to Frank's point of view than
this
Evelyn's,
is parent,
right?
They don't owe you anything.
Right.
You know what I mean? And does that mean that they should or shouldn't do it? No. But the owing is where it comes down to. Is there some sort of responsibility? With great power comes great responsibility. Yes, in certain regards, you can make that argument. But I think ultimately when you're talking about somebody's life, their life is theirs.
Right.
And I think that's the thing, is they always owe themselves more than they owe somebody else. Now, like I said, ultimately, and it's their choice, though.
Right.
So, if for Mary, like you said, she loves mathematics, so it seems like she does, at least at this point. And so far. So if that's something you should explore, yeah, absolutely. But if there does come a day when mathematics no longer fulfills her and she decides she wants to do something else, then that should be what she does.
Get a boyfriend.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly.
Get
a boyfriend.
What mom was not allowed to do.
Right. And, so I think that's kind of... it's hard for a parent to realize that their kid is going to have a life that has nothing to do with you.
Sure.
And I'm not saying this from this idea of you're having a kid and it's you're the I guess the cliche kind of sarcastic comments of you're just replicating yourself. You know what I mean? Yes, you're reproducing, and yes, this person is connected to you on a DNA level, and you want them to stay in part of your life always. But ultimately, their life is theirs, and they're going to have to live it how they want to live it. Now, for Mary, like I said, if she wants to continue with mathematics, I think that, absolutely, she should do that, and it would be amazing, and I'm sure she would do amazing things. But in the end, it's her choice to make.
Yeah.
There's no owing.
Right.
And I think that's, parents like Evelyn, have a hard time with, is they think, because usually it's not for the kid, it's for them.
Yep.
Ultimately, that's really what it is.
Exactly.
It's not about the kid, it's about them. And I think that's a hard, and it's easy to say, but I do think, parents, it's a hard lesson for parents to learn, is it's not about you.
Yeah.
It's about them.
Right.
And they're going, their life is theirs.
Yeah.
Your life is yours. And that doesn't mean that you don't care about each other. It doesn't mean you don't take care of each other where you can. It doesn't, but it means that their choices are going to be theirs. Yeah. And, ultimately in the end, no.
I agree. I agree. I lay more on Frank's side. And like you said, sometimes it's easy to say these things, but it's also really easy for Evelyn's character to say, you owe the world the responsibility to do what I want you to do.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's because that's
because she can't.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's easy for you to say that you owe your gifts to somebody else because you can't.
Right. Those who can't do, teach.
You can't do these. Right.
Those who can't teach Jim.
Jim.
Okay, Rob. Well, I really appreciate that answer. And now for the biggest question of what we do with this podcast, I ask you now. You've seen Gifted for the first time.
Yes.
Did you like this movie, and would you recommend it to somebody else?
I think I did have a. You're right. You weren't wrong.
I said this was gonna be a triggering movie.
It's a bit of a triggering movie at times. Yeah, and I think it's a hard movie. Ultimately, it's going to be a hard movie for me to grade review just because of that. You know, because of the comparisons. And I think that ultimately, yes, I did like the movie. Did it have shortcomings? Yes.
Sure.
I do think that there were things about this movie that I wish they had done. Like I said, namely Chris Evans, because I think it's such an interesting element to his character that I don't think is explored nearly enough about this idea of being the sibling of a prodigy, and the fact that like his mom is going through all of these hoops to like, you know, get the granddaughter and all of this, and like just does not really seem to give a crap if she has a relationship with him. It almost doesn't even seem to be like a part of her life. You know what I mean? Like no pictures, no nothing. It's crazy to me. So, and maybe that's the parent in me, but like that really just it kind of irked me. And then, like I said, I do think the third act kind of splutters a little bit. Like I think that whole like the whole foster situation just feels weird and fake. But I do think what the movie is trying to say overall is really important. And so for that, I do like it.
All right, Rob, I think it's time to wrap up our last real episode of Say Hello to My Little Film for 2025.
Yep.
This conversation on Gifted is done. We got 24 of these, so this is in the can. So we are done, but we are less than 10 days from Christmas, and we'd like our listeners to leave us with some gifts.
Please.
At the end of Gifted, leave us some gifts, and some of those gifts would be just liking the podcast. Pretty easy to do that. Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. Review the podcast. If you leave us a 5-star review, we're going to read it live on air someday. If you guys want to talk to us, email us at carrayrob@gmail.com or reach out to us on Blue Sky.
Absolutely. You can now follow us on Facebook at Car Ray Rob Podcast Network. If there is a comment section on whatever platform you're on, by all means, let us know what you thought of Gifted. I think it's a decent movie. I thought it was a decent movie. That was good, and I hope you do as well. We will be back next week with our last episode of 2025 of Hello Movies, My Old Friend, where Ray and I are going to be revisiting the sports comedy classic Mystery Alaska.
It's going to be a mystery if we are going to still think it holds up.
We're going to find out. It's going to definitely be an interesting journey. We will be back then in 2 weeks with our year-end special, which we are super excited about, where we will be doing our combined top 10 Say Hello to My Little Film Fave recommendations for the year. We will also talk about a copy of a copy and Hello Movies, and I do believe we will be having a special guest, at least for a little bit, so you're definitely going to want to check that out. But then we will be back with our brand new season of Say Hello to My Little Film. Season 3, and it will be back to me. I'm going to be kicking things off, and I'm going to tell you now, I am going to be kicking it off in the absolute polar opposite way that I kicked off season 2. It's going to shock you.
A movie with color.
It is a movie with color, but it is a movie type of movie I've never shown before. I was super shocked that you had not seen this movie, but I'm super excited to do it because I think it's going to be a brand new journey for both of us. Nobody is going to want to miss that. But until then, this is Car Ray Rob.
Where I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob. And remember, be defined by the films you love, not the ones you hate.
Hey there, it'll be just a little while till Ray and Rob spit their spittle. Come on, check out of the hospital. So grab some of your best peanut brittle. This will be a darn good transmittal. And say hello to my little film.
All right, everyone, Rob here. Want to give you a little sneak peek of how I'm going to be kicking off season 3 of Say Hello to My Little Film. And as I mentioned, I'm going to be doing it in the exact polar opposite way that I started this season. And I'm going to be doing that by recommending to Ray the 2014 action spectacle John Wick. I know I'm sure you're as shocked as I was to learn that Ray has never seen this movie, but I think now's the time for him to do it, and it's the time for you to do it as well. If you've not seen John Wick, check it out, and we will see you in the new year.